pull up by the fire, grab a drink, and join us as we celebrate Jack Johnson's 2005 album, The Most Excellent In Between Dreams. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Take two. You have no idea what that means, but Eric and I know what that means. Thank you for joining us on our weekly excursion into music and movies that we enjoy. Hopefully that you'll enjoy as well, right? Hopefully there's some simpatico there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's always fun.
We're guessing that these are things you might like, but we like them.
We love them. So we're having a ball. Hopefully you're having a ball listening. So there it is.
We're having a ball doing it. Yeah. So what our one ask from you, we're not going to do any social media begging tonight. We're just going to ask you to share the podcast. If you like it, you more than likely have friends that like movies and music as well. So go ahead and be that pal to them. Be the savior in their life and give them this podcast and show them how what they've been missing in their life.
Yeah.
Is that am I overselling?
No, I don't think so. As long as we're loving it, you know, we love the attention. I think that's what we're trying to say here. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not feeling much attention in this little corner that I'm in. I'm not sure I'm feeling the attention. So in order for us to feel the attention, go ahead and share that podcast. Go ahead and like us. Yeah. Check us out on YouTube as well. We got the video versions there, so you can go watch that as well and see what we look like if you're not sure.
Yeah.
You'll have to guess who's Dean. You'll have to guess who's Eric.
Well, after a while, I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. So we're talking about a fantastic album. We hadn't gotten to it for a while. It was on the list. Mm-hmm. Not wanting to do it, but because whenever, you know, I will usually send Eric a list of 5 or 6 albums, and I would always slip it in there, but not because he didn't want to do it, because probably I tempted him with something more.
Yeah, that's true.
If I put Peter Gabriel and Jack Johnson in the list at the same time, he's going to pick Peter Gabriel. It's nothing against Jack Johnson, right?
No hard feelings. Not at all. No not hard at all. But Jack. Yeah, you're right. It was in the list. Wow, I'm thinking way back when we first started.
Yeah,
it was one of your first picks.
I would slide him in there just to see, get a little eclecticness in there. We finally got around to this most excellent album. A full disclaimer before we start. You will not hear a bad word out of our mouths about Jack Johnson, about Mr. Jack Johnson. You will not hear any gripes because he's just that kind of a person. I think he evokes that kind of a feeling for us, for Eric and I think we feel that way about him. And I think everyone that really likes him does. And if you've never checked out Jack Johnson, I'm going to really advocate that you check this album out. You know, I totally agree. It's a particular type of music, but it's a great type of music.
And I think I might have said it before, and but you know, a lot of the artists that we are into, they're not aging gracefully. Let's put it that way. It's always great to be into an artist who cares about the music, who is doing something good for the world or the community or whatever, and it gives off that great vibe, and the music is a reflection of that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess maybe we're mellowing out in our old age, but the artists, you know, that are like that really have a fondness for the music. It's all about the music, getting it out there, making people feel good. It's not about themselves.
But it's just simple melodies.
Yes.
Simple song construction. Mm-hmm. This album is 17 years old, so it's not like we're just discovering him. We discovered him way back. So I'm going to advocate that we're not getting older because we got into him when we were younger. So he's come along with us we dragged Jack Johnson on the journey with us. So let's roll out the stats as we do, and then we'll get we'll let the gushing begin. And we'll start. So this was released in March of 2005, produced by Mario Caldato Jr. Mm-hmm. I was not sure what that dude had done. Usually when we do our episodes, I may not be totally familiar with the producer, but I've probably heard of them.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard anything about this dude until I looked him up, and he was an engineer on Beastie Boys' great album Paul's Boutique, and then he had produced, I think, the following 2 albums.
Yeah,
for the
fantastic
Beasties
record
as well.
That's one that we maybe we can think about doing in the future. That would be a good one to do. But
they're on the Excel spreadsheet. They are on the spreadsheet.
Okay, there you go.
This hit number 2 on the Billboard chart, so very nice, and 2 times platinum. So that's 2 million copies. So this was a really a big seller. But we'll go through this. There was 3 singles released, and this kind of betrays the Jack Johnson story a little bit. The first single was Sitting, Waiting, Wishing, which only hit number 66.
Mm-hmm.
The next single was called Good People, which hit number 1 on the adult alternative chart, but really didn't do anything on the hot 100 chart or 200, whatever. Then there was a third single, Breakdown, which didn't chart at all. I don't understand that, how an album hits number 2, which a lot of albums do, but it also sold over 2 million copies, but did not have any blast off singles from it. I remember Sitting, Waiting, Wishing, because of the music video.
Yeah.
Which was very innovative. It was shot backwards. It was shot in reverse. So he had to try and mouth the lyrics in reverse because the whole video was shot backwards and then played forward. So it was like everything was unhappening to him.
He's trying
he always has great music videos, by the way. He always has something.
He's definitely trying to trip you out there.
So that was, I picked up on, and I picked up on that single and then kind of like sat on it a little bit and then eventually kind of probably heard some of the other stuff just on the radio or wherever it was. And then finally picked up the album and it's like, God, where have you been all my life? Because he really it's music that makes me feel good.
Yeah,
is what it is.
Ironically for me, it was a promo copy, because we used to play it when I was working at Best Buy for a time. They would they'd have like certain songs like on a promo disc that they and they would promote like upcoming albums and such. So that single was on that and I loved it then. Mm-hmm. And when the album came out, a guy that I worked with was a big fan of the guy, and he would put it on and when we were setting up for the store open, getting things ready, and this thing would be playing like every morning. We would play this album for so I really got to know it full on. It wasn't about like what I heard on the radio or anything like that. So, but it was so warm and inviting, and I picked it up on the spot, and I just love it. Yeah, it's such a great record.
And 2005 when it came out was a very eclectic year.
Yeah.
I'll roll through a couple, but not a whole ton. But the thing that's going to come out of this is I don't remember like one massive album that came out in 2005. Like where was like, the industry was very fragmented at the time because you had Late Registration by Kanye West, Demon Days by Gorillaz, X and Y by Coldplay, Confessions on the Dance Floor by Madonna, Guero by Beck, In Your Honor by Foo Fighters, The Emancipation of Mimi by Mariah Carey. We did White Stripes, Get Behind Me Satan, which came out this year. Monkey Business by Black Eyed Peas. You can't put your finger on the pulse of 2005 and get a feel for like a common thread, right? I guess that's what I'm getting at. Like we, in the 90s, we know we had grunge and the resurgence of rap. Actually, Eminem's album came out this year as well. I forget which one, but Eminem had an album. But in 2005, I don't feel a cohesiveness in the music industry and what was out.
It was an odd decade overall, I think. Yeah. It felt like albums were not treasured or appreciated as much as they used to be, or CDs, I guess you could say. Things streaming was starting, was on the cusp of becoming a thing. And so we were right.
People were consuming music in a different way. Yeah,
people were had the advent of just listening to singles and songs and just an eclectic mix of everybody was making playlists and things like that. So albums like this, unfortunately, I think at this point in time, all the artists that you mentioned were putting out stuff that these weren't the breakthrough albums of their career. They had already done it. So here we are in the middle of the decade, much like, like say Eagles in the 70s or Fleetwood Mac, or they already made their big big album, and now we're just seeing sort of like they're just doing either more of the same, or perhaps we're trying to do better. But
or just not big artists that weren't just like big, like Gorillaz were a big group, but they're not gigantic. They're not like,
they were, to me, they're, they're not even a group. They're just a virtual,
but meaning,
thing.
As far as like, as far as what was going on in the scene, it was like, there wasn't like a pinnacle. There wasn't like a Bon Jovi release, or there wasn't one album that everybody ran away with. I'm looking at the list. I'm like, I don't know that there was one album that everybody had.
I see what you're saying
in that list, right? There wasn't like that one that everybody kind of gathers around, no matter what the genre that transcends. In 2005, you didn't see that, and that's why Jack Johnson could sneak in there.
Yeah. We weren't looking for anything either. Like I said, I mean, just people were just like, oh yeah, well, we got it right here. We could just punch it up and, whatever. And it's there. And we weren't waiting for that major release,
Music became very disposable because you were, like you said, you can go on iTunes, you can grab this song, you can grab that song for 99 cents, $1.29, whatever it is, and you can kind of cobble together. And the fact that this sold 2 million copies though, and hit number 2, he was doing something right. He was hitting something through all those different eclectic. There wasn't really an artist like Jack Johnson in the list of stuff that I went through.
Yeah.
Right. There wasn't someone like him who just kind of was simple songs. And when I say simple, just meaning, it's kind of harkens back to an episode we just did about Carole King, right? That singer-songwriter guy with a guitar type thing.
Yeah.
Just kind of great melodies. He's got a great like mellow voice. It's just calming. Like I said in the beginning, it's just, he makes you feel good because he makes you feel comfortable is what it is.
Yeah. It's very inviting stuff. This album is, and I hadn't heard his first 2 records. But I wasn't really looking for it either. I figured they would be more of the same. And when I finally did hear stuff off the first 2 albums, I was right. I was like, yeah, this is, but I'm glad that I came upon this third album, because this to me is perfect from beginning to end.
Oh yeah.
And
it's just
I don't want, there are certain that you don't have to like every album by a particular artist, by the way. There are albums that just fall into your lap that you can just love. And that can be the only album that you like by this person. You don't have to like love the artist, or, I can name several bands like that, like Flogging Molly. I think there's one particular album that I love, and it's not their biggest hit. Their Drunken Lullabies album, which is their grand opus or whatever. But it was an album that came later that just sort of fell into my lap. And I liked what the album had to say. It was about a very specific time in someone's life. And those songs reflected that. I felt like Jack Johnson was kind of doing the same thing here. Every song just had a certain mood to it, and a certain, you're sitting back in a lounge chair, or the palm trees. I mean, the imagery alone is worth every.
It's a lifestyle thing. I did latch on to him though, and I did from here start getting his because I liked it. And like you said, how could somebody not like Jack Johnson? I'm sure there was, we were talking earlier and you said that the reviews were kind of mixed on it, and you were kind of wondering like, how could somebody not like this? And
they were.
Well, sure. If you're into the speed metal and the death metal, this is not going to be your cup of tea. Right. But he's not going to change to fit that niche. Also, he's not going to all of a sudden put out that kind of music to cater to that. He fills a certain spot, and I don't want him to fill any other spot in my life. Like I want one Jack Johnson.
You come to expect what he does, and that's what you go for, and that's what you're actively seeking out. Yeah, we could listen to speed metal and enjoy it. We could listen to all kinds of different types of music, but that's the beauty of music.
And then you go and then you go to this like kind of corner of music.
Yeah, right.
It just puts me at peace. Kind of like the Hulk in Age of Ultron, when like Natasha would come after the Hulk would rage, and she's like, "Sun's going down, big fella." Like, if you play like Jack Johnson, if you play Jack Johnson, I kind of start to settle down. Right. I kind of take deeper breaths,
that's
and then I become myself again after everything.
Yeah.
So, brief history of Jack Johnson. This is known as surf music, okay? But it's different from surf music that I also love from the 60s. Surf music from the 60s was kind of guitar, a lot of reverb, a lot of echo, a lot of twangy stuff. That was kind of surf music. That was music to surf to, I suppose, if you were a surfer.
Yeah.
Jack Johnson was a former pro surfer. He was a pro surfer as a young man. Had a devastating injury, over 100 stitches in his head, lost a bunch of teeth. That kind of steered him in a new direction, which was to make this type of music, which has become known as kind of surf music, because he actually started a record label and would have some other surfers on his label as well. So we'll get into that a little later on. But it is this whole kind of subgenre. You know, it's not really folk. It's not really folk music. It's mellow, but it's not light music either, right?
Right. Did I hear somebody refer to it as Baja music? Was that a term?
Baja, it could be. It's got sometimes he's got some reggae influence. So it's got all that island stuff. He's from Hawaii. He was born and raised in Hawaii. So it's he's going to be as laid back can be.
That's right.
Right. I mean, he's already bringing that with him in his story. You know, so it's not a manufactured thing.
So do you think he created this new type of surf music per se? You think was he ever a fan of like the original stuff that?
No, I don't think so. I think this is just something that kind of, I'm sure there was a scene over there of sitting around the fire after surfing. You got the guitar out and you're kind of strumming it and like whatever is happening. I think, I would guess it kind of grew from that type of atmosphere that was going on, because that music very much reflects it. Especially a song like and I didn't say in the stats, but all songs were written or co-written by Jack Johnson except for Banana Pancakes. And Banana Pancakes is a very interesting song because it's got a rain effect throughout the whole back. So it's a mood, like you listen to it. If you listen to it with headphones, it's going to set a mood. You're going to think you're in someone's house and it's raining out, and he just picked up a guitar and started singing, and it just he has that ability to kind of just make something very intimate and kind of make you feel close to the music.
Yeah,
which is what I love.
We'll stay in. I'll make some breakfast for you. Kind of reminds me of the Jewel,
pretend it's the weekend.
The Jewel song. Let's go back to bed. She's let's just stay in and not do anything for the day and just enjoy each other's company. But that is. Yeah, exactly a slice of life. That is such, you can't get any more forward than that, And it's you would think Banana. It's like a corny kind of song, but it's not. It really evokes certain feelings and feelings that we're not sometimes willing or maybe afraid to share. Like we don't want to admit those little quiet moments in our lives. We don't. We just.
Yeah, and he sings it like he's singing it to his partner. He sings it like, he's not like singing it like, oh, here's a song with a lot of production. It sounds very intimate. It sounds like something he probably would pick up and
that is probably
wake up in the morning and sing.
The only piece of production on this is that rain effect. That sound effect in the background. That's like that's as innovative as he's going to get.
Yeah.
In terms
it sets
of like
the tone,
fancy,
right?
It does.
It draws you in, and that's what I love about him. And about his music. And I jumped on from here, and he after this, he would actually have a string of number ones. He almost came close to setting a record. He had 3 number 1 albums in a row after this. So this kind of launched him. If he had gotten a 4th number 1, he would have been tied for 3rd of all time with 4 albums debuting at number 1. So this guy's no joke. It seems very stealthy. It almost seems like he's so good natured that he doesn't want to bother anybody going to number 1, but does. Just his albums, like
he just kind of leapfrogs there, right? Yeah, because
normally
slips in there.
Yeah, because normally they have, this would be their big album, then the other ones would be like number 8, number 23, number 40. But he hit number 111 3 times in a row.
Well, I think he definitely
then his 4th one went to number 2. Yeah, so he's no slouch.
He was on the pulse of something. People were resonating with him and his, and again, people in Florida were all over him. Of course, hanging out at the beach, and it is of a type. Exactly. So
different from Jimmy Buffett, though, right? Jimmy Buffett, you could think of like, oh, Jimmy Buffett is that kind of music. He's, the islands and Florida and beaches.
Yeah.
But he occupies a different space in that, right? He's of that,
right.
He's of that mood or lifestyle, but in a different way. Jack Johnson's a little bit more intimate, like at the end of the day type thing.
Nobody knows mellow than better than Jack Johnson. I mean, but that's the fun of it. That is exactly like you said. Like this is what we want. We don't want anything more from that. We don't want it like some kind of like weird, experimental thing, like something like Dave Matthews would have done. I mean, he's done his fair share of mellow acoustic music too, but then they'll do something really crazy and then jam out and do, which I love that kind of stuff. But here it's less busy. It's not busy at all. It's just, just chill out, guys. It's a good hang. Yeah. I've heard that term bandied about recently. But it's a good hang, just hanging with your buddies, recording the record, the whole vibe is just spot on.
He's got a real keen ear for melody. I mean, this album is very listenable. There's not like something that, like you said, it doesn't go off on there's not a throwaway, like, oh, let me do a weird thing.
Yeah.
It's very consistent. And that's what I like about it is you can kind of listen to one song after another, like on a Sunday morning, and you're having a cup of coffee. It just, and that's not a bad thing. Like you need this sometimes in your life. And
you totally need to unwind. And this is the perfect choice. Didn't realize how much I needed him. Didn't realize how much I needed Jack Johnson in my life. Honestly, it was a breath of fresh air. And in all the busy music that I listened to, you used a really good term of busy. The music I tend to listen to is very busy. Very produced, and a lot of pops, crackles, whips, and zings and buzzes going around. Yeah.
And this kind of brushes it all away, brushes it aside, and he just kind of tells you some stories, like Breakdown, great songs, Staple It Together.
Constellations is a great one.
Better Together. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk. All right. You want to talk about Constellations now?
I know that's a particular favorite of yours. I know that.
Well, we had the opportunity. Okay. What was it? 2019? 2019 we saw Jack Johnson?
I think it was 18. It was a year before. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So 2018 was a very there was a very interesting week in my life in 2018. For somehow I booked 3 concerts in a row with 3 different artists. So it was Wednesday was Jack Johnson, Thursday was Bob Dylan, and Friday was Dawes. Okay. There was three shows. So this is like a marathon, 3 shows in a row. All of them were general admission, which means you're standing, right? GA, the tickets are cheap. If you get there early, you can get right up to the front on the rail, right? But you end up standing out there for an hour before anything happens to secure your position.
Were they all? They were. Well, 2 of the concerts were in 2 different venues. How about Dawes? Was that at a different venue in itself?
So Jack Johnson was at Forest Hill Stadium, which is in Queens, New York, but it was a former tennis stadium. It's a great venue. Mm-hmm. Bob Dylan was at the Capitol Theater in Portchester, and then Dawes the next night was also at the Capitol Theater in Portchester. Okay. So all those. So basically, there's going to be 3 nights of standing. And a lot of standing because you want to get there early, right? You want to get up front.
That's right.
And see the artist. So I reached out to Eric. I said, listen, I got a lot of these shows coming up. Do you want to go to 1, 2, or all of them? And Eric wasn't too acquainted with Dawes and probably didn't want to spend 3 days with me going to shows. So he opted in for Jack Johnson and he opted in for Bob Dylan. We told the Bob Dylan story already. So go listen to Nashville Skyline. We're not going to go into that story. But Jack Johnson and his opening act was Bahamas, which we need to talk about just a little bit as well, because Bahamas fits into the Jack Johnson story, but we'll get to him. Mm-hmm. So we're driving up, we're driving to Forest Hills, listening to like a Pandora playlist of these type of artists. And actually Bahamas came on, they played his song. We get there, we see Bahamas. We were there really early. I fell in love with Bahamas instantly. It was like love at first sight for an artist. He was really great. Eric thought he was kind of cool as well. And then Jack Johnson comes out. And it was magic. It was a magical night. It's probably one of the best concerts I've seen because he doesn't tour that often, Jack Johnson. So it's kind of like, okay, getting tickets was one thing because it's not like he tours every year and he comes around and kind of beats it into the ground. Mm-hmm. So that was a special thing. Having Eric there was a special thing as well. I didn't realize how much he liked him. So that was another thing. The weather was beautiful. It was in the middle of, nice. I think it was June or July.
Yeah.
it was a beautiful, clear evening. And Jack Johnson comes on and people are singing every song.
Yeah, he had that crowd in the palm of his hand.
Yeah, I mean, it was him. It was just him.
And I dare say, especially the women. The women
yes.
were, they were
even the guys.
In that,
we were all in it. And then, as the sun, and he played it perfectly. As the sun went down and it got darker, he finally played Constellations.
Yeah.
And I remember looking around. I remember turning around, and the whole, it's not a stadium. It's called a stadium, but it's not very big. Mm-hmm. During Constellations, everybody had their phone lights on, so it looked like the stars because it was dark out.
Excuse me.
It was such an amazing visual that I remember taking the time to like burn into my. I think I may have even taken a photo of it just to burn into my memory because he's playing the song Constellations. Everybody was like of one mind. It's very hippie, very zen moment for me. Of turning around and looking at the crowd and just seeing all the lights and everybody was just singing and it was just it was such an amazing feeling. It was
moment.
Amazing to be a part. Yeah. A great moment to be a part of. It was just so incredible.
Yeah, it was.
Did you feel the same?
I did.
Were you?
I'm sorry.
Eric was getting popcorn.
No, maybe I don't know. No, I definitely felt it. I mean, but that's the thing, you and sometimes you're moved. You're very moved.
Yeah.
And music can do that, and music like this can do that. So if you think, if you're used to going to a big stadium and just getting that kind of experience from a big act with a lot of fanfare, a lot of overhead, as I like to call it, which stage presentation, lasers. And if you think that is the end all be all of shows, then, guess again, because an artist can do something like this. He can be as intimate as he can be and still move you and still take you somewhere. And you don't need all the fanfare. You're in the zone. And that's music. That's what the power of music should do.
Yeah. Because it was a shared experience. Everybody was into it. Right. And everybody was kind of open to it. And, like I said, he played a lot of stuff from this album.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he may have even opened with Better Together. He might have, but and people were singing just from the jump. People were singing.
It's either that or he opened with the song from the Curious George soundtrack.
He might. Yeah.
Everybody went nuts over it. And by the way, this is a very. It means a lot to me because that's when my son Jake was born, and we actually had that soundtrack we would play in the car when, to put him to sleep. And, we had the movie and, so that was a special record too. Yeah. He could do that as well. And we all have our, bits and pieces of life that sneak in and he relates to that. Even I don't know if he has children or I'm not sure if he's a family man himself, but but he knew how to just swing right in there and get to me, and get to my wife. And he's just a cool dude. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. And how Bahamas fits into this is on In Between Dreams. Jack Johnson started his own record label, Brushfire Records. So he started his own label and started. So a lot of times the artists will start a label just to put their own stuff out. It's like, okay, it's easier if we just do it. Like the Beach Boys did it with Brother Records, and like they kind of make a label and then just their own stuff is distributed. But he created Brushfire Records. He signed a gentleman called Donovan Frankenreiter, who was a fellow pro surfer, and he was a surfer like well into. He didn't get hurt early. I believe he actually lived with Jack Johnson. I don't know if he wasn't with his parents when he was young or didn't have parents, and his family took him in and he lived with them. And Donovan Frankenreiter became a big time surfer, well-known surfer, then transitioned into music. So he got signed to Brushfire. He's not on Brushfire anymore, but his first couple albums were. And then a gentleman named Bahamas is also on Brushfire Records, also signed. And don't let the name will betray you. Bahamas is from Canada. It's one gentleman. His name is Afi Jervainen is his name, but he goes by the name Bahamas because he didn't think anybody would appreciate his type of music from a Canadian, so he wanted something exotic.
It's smart.
So he calls himself Bahamas. Yep. We thought at the time, Eric and I, we didn't know. All I knew was the opening act was Bahamas. So I was.
And I think he said
it was going to be some type of world music or something really exotic.
Yeah, we're expecting some reggae walks band exactly. With a guitar.
This dude walks out in a bathing suit and a silver tone guitar and a snarky attitude, which I was so self-deprecating. I loved him. He was just making fun of himself. He's like, I got to get this finished because they got the pool. They got the pool set up in the back, so I got to get this set finished. Like he was just so he was so engaging, and I love artists that are like that. I love artists.
And he wasn't joking either. I think he was actually diving into that pool. I'm pretty sure, because at some point we did see him in the background, like backstage, wet.
Yeah, and then he actually did he did come out. They did a Whole Wide World together. I think he came out and did a couple songs. So again, it was just a great hang. But to get on further on, so he does. Jack Johnson has his record label Brushfire. Mm-hmm. Environmentalism, very much concerned about the welfare of the earth. In 2003, he created the Koa Hawaii Foundation. In 2008, him and his wife created the Johnson Ohana Charitable Foundation. That was in 2008. That supports environmental, art, and music education.
That's
okay.
Fantastic.
So he donates when Hurricane Sandy hit the New York area. He immediately donated $50,000 to the recovery efforts. He will, when he goes out on tours, part of the tours or sometimes the whole proceeds from a tour will go towards environmental causes. So this guy could very easily tour and just be in it for the money and clean up. He cleans up in a different way. He's trying to clean up the earth, and he does it by using his music and using the power that he has to raise awareness of these issues. But he doesn't beat you over the head. I don't even recall him preaching.
No,
right? No. There was no let me stop for a minute, and you're bad if you're literally like he, it's a facet of his life, and it's an important facet of his life.
I think,
but he doesn't, he's not like self-righteous and if you don't do this and that and laying it on. He delivered an evening of music that was bar none, one of the best concerts, which then makes you. It's almost reverse psychology because then it makes you be like, wow, this guy's really cool. I want to help out or be involved in what he's doing because he didn't give you the hard sell.
No, he didn't give you the hard sell, but the music reflects his, it's not overly political stuff that he writes about. I mean, I think there were a couple of songs on this album, I want to say Crying Shame. Might be one of them that has, somewhat, lyrics that kind of go there a little bit. But on the other hand, it's like, but the music in itself, because it's so of a particular mood and type that you want to help out, because you want to have artists like this. You want music like this. You want art to show through, right? I mean, that's the beautiful thing. It's like, and the music just speaks volumes as to what he's all about.
Yeah, it's not finger pointing. It's not lecturing.
Exactly. And just it's not love me, standing on the edge of a stage like, oh that kind of thing. No, he's very. I don't recall him actually ever really speaking that much. He's not
very little.
There wasn't not a lot of bantering with the audience. He's just letting the music speak for itself.
Maybe introduced a song or two.
I personally love that. Because I think if you're that confident and you're in what you're doing, I feel like that should be the thing, and it's not a whole lot of there's a difference between somebody telling a story. Like we mentioned, we talk about Andy Fairweather Low, we're big fans of this guy, and he, you went to see him, and he was telling stories about his life, and that's one thing. But to have artists that come out and just stop the song in the middle.
How's everybody effing doing tonight?
Exactly.
That kind of stuff.
And just playing a little chord, bing, and then the call and response thing, and constantly doing that, and love me. That gets, gets a little on your nerves a little bit. But if you're into the artist, I guess I can't I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it's
No.
just of a personal opinion.
It's a different, it's a different show. You go when you go to those shows, you're ready for that. We hadn't seen Jack Johnson, so we didn't know what to expect whatsoever.
Right?
Was it going to be obscure? Was it going to be? And he delivered. He gave us all the songs we wanted to hear, and faithfully interpreted too, which I'm a big proponent of. I like to hear it the way it was done. So that for me was an extra check mark for Mr. Jack Johnson. Yeah. Like I said, the venue was fantastic. The evening was fantastic. The weather was perfect. Everything just aligned, and again, I don't want to get too,
sentimental,
too corny too corny or too, out there with it, but everything just aligned that night for just a gorgeous evening. And he was the spearhead. I think it was the energy that he put out, or that people were expecting from him. There were probably other people there that have been there plenty of times.
Right.
We were the newbies and we enjoyed it. And it was, this album kind of anchored that show, even though this was, 10, 12 years later, this, like I said, songs like Breakdown, If I Could, Staple It Together, all, I think he did a lot of these songs. Good People. Oh God, I just love.
So catchy too. Like they're just, they hit you. They start off, pleasant enough, but then the song kicks in. There might be a little bit of percussion happening, perhaps a little bass, just enough just to get you like in
sweetens it. He sweetens
the vibe,
it with, he puts a little sweetener in there to kind of bring you in. You're right. He kind of starts off a song, and some of them will just kind of start off, but he'll kind of start off with his guitar, and then there'll be a little extra that they sprinkle in that gets you going. And
I love the way he tunes his guitar. Like he has this very pleasant, like a ring to his playing, right? You know what I'm talking about? Like those notes that he could hit, that it just,
they sustain. He could sustain them. Yeah.
And it's not like, and he's not using any effects hardly on the recording process. So it's the tone of the guitar, the actual tone of the guitar. Yeah. We heard it live, and it's just, it's of a very particular and very unique sound. I love it. It's so warm and inviting. The whole album is like in the room vibe feel. It's just, there's not a whole lot of echo. I've come to love that in later recordings, like of this period, the warmth of it. We mentioned Wildflowers, like, Tom Petty, that kind of, feeling and warmness to the production is great.
Yeah. Intimacy.
Yep. So.
Now there was I think I'll put a link to it in the show notes. He had his couple of albums after this. One was called To the Sea, which is a fantastic album. The lead single was actually kind of electric guitar driven. Mm-hmm. It was called At or With You. Yeah. And the whole premise of you ever see the video for it?
I have not, but I know the
premise
song.
The premise for the video was, Jack Johnson is playing in like a pub. Yeah. And Andy Samberg walks in from SNL and he's like, "Oh, it's the Mellow Man." Like he started the Mellow Man. Oh, like he started like really railing on him like for being like mellow and like this, wimpy kind of music. So he starts, so the song starts, which is an up tempo kind of, for him a little bit of a rockin' song. Right. And in the video, like Andy Samberg's like being loud, like that guy in the bar that's being loud and like laughing when someone's trying to play. So like Jack Johnson like puts the guitar down and dives off the stage, and they start like cracking bottles over their head, and he gets stabbed with a fork. And then they like tie their wrists together like in Beat It, like when they're gonna have like the face off.
Yeah.
And Jack Johnson like pulls out a knife, and Andy Samberg's like, "What are you pulling out a knife for?" And Jack Johnson's like, "I thought we were doing Beat It."
That's great.
It's just like he doesn't take himself so he can harbor, he can take the ridicule good naturedly. Like Andy Samberg was obviously a fan, but I think during that time on SNL, he was just always like making fun of him.
I do recall another skit.
Yeah, he was always ribbing him.
Where there was like three stoners hanging out. It was Jack Johnson, Dave Matthews, and someone else, and they were all hanging out together. And Dave Matthews was actually in the skit, but he wasn't playing himself. He was playing, I think, either Jack Johnson or the other guy. Yeah, so it was weird. It was, I think it was Andy Samberg and him and someone else, and it might have been Chris Parnell at the time. Yeah. But it was funny because they're all just stoned and just sitting there because they're all hanging out and playing. Yeah, we're the what did they call it? Like it was name of a club. was like they were it was like a nightclub or something where and it was just, the backdrop of those sliding things that fold out, and then you had the palm trees in the background, and they're just sitting in the chairs and they're just soaking up, and that was the skit, and they were just like, yeah, man, and like trying to talk about topics of the day, like political topic, and it wasn't going well because they're just stoned to even get through it.
Yeah. See, I mean, he doesn't take himself so seriously, like, that he could take the ribbing, and he understands what his reputation is of this mellow type, beachy, laid back kind of music. And like I said, we've got this room for it, and it's just, he continues to put music out. And the funny thing about Brushfire Records, right? Jack Johnson created Brushfire Records. His contract with Brushfire kind of stipulated that he was supposed to put out an album every 2 years, right?
Okay.
So he put out In Between Dreams in 2005. The next year he did Curious George. So we'll start there, right? Because Curious George kind of lit him off. So 2 years later, he put out Sleep Through the Static. 2 years later, in 2010, he put To the Sea, which is a great one. 2013, he put out From Here to Now to You. So he would have been scheduled for 2015. Brushfire Records, which he owns, comes to him and says, you have an album due in 2015. He owns the label. Then they're saying, you have to give us an album in 2015. He's like, well, I don't really feel like writing anything. I can't just write. I need to.
Yeah. That's wild.
He owns the label, but then like this, the Suits or whoever it is of the label are saying, well, we have an agreement with you that you got to deliver an album every 2 years. So he didn't. The album didn't come out until 2017, which was kind of funny. So I think they kind of maybe have tore up that clause or amended that clause in the contract that, especially since he created the record company. I think, don't bust his chops, right? If he said 2 years and it's 3 or 4,
don't bite the hand that feeds you, right?
He's not going anywhere. It's his record label. He'll get there. He'll get to it. And you don't want to force somebody, right? Because then it becomes artificial, right?
Yeah.
If you're making someone do stuff, right, and you have to deliver this. Maybe when they made that agreement, he was probably on a roll of I can kind of do this. I got it. I got a backlog or whatever I have, but
right.
If you don't, and you're not, you don't have anything, why force it? Just like,
no. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Be like Jack Johnson and let him do his own thing. Right.
There you go.
Be like the boss.
Yeah.
If the boss says it's okay, why are you pressuring the boss?
I want to ask you now when you changed the logo, I'm going off of track here a little bit. And I noticed our logo in the background.
Our podcast logo? Oh, okay.
Yes. Our podcast logo and the colors that you chose. Was that Jack Johnson inspired to pick those colors or no? It just came. No. Just kind of came.
Why do you think it is?
Because it looks because it just looks very.
Let me look behind
beachy,
me.
Very beachy. It's very, to me, it speaks Florida, Miami Vice. You got the blue, that kind of like, it just kind of pops that way. It gives off that vibe. I was just wondering
hopefully the logo is soothing then, right?
Yeah,
we don't want something that's like,
that's exactly, no. So it the logo speaks to what we're talking about is the laid back approach, and the colors really give off that vibe. It just occurred to me as I'm looking over your shoulder. It was
not done with that intent, but you're on a roll with these fan theories. You had the City Slickers fan theory for Wizard of Oz. Now we've got the Jack Johnson 3324 podcast logo fan theory as well. And if you need to see that, this is as good a time as any to say go check us out on Facebook or Instagram. You can see the logo for yourself. It's there.
Yep.
And you can see is it beachy? Is it? It's it's an interesting logo. The colors aren't represented right in the logo behind me, by the way. It should be a little more red.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, plus I have an orange light on it to simulate sunrise. So
I love your hat.
Yeah. Got the hat going too. I got the Ohana hat too. I came dressed for the party and I was just drinking a Corona.
Hey,
what else do you want
kind of relaxed. I got my very casual t-shirt on, kind of just hanging, so.
What do you want? All I need is a lay and to be turning a pig on a spit but I can't build a fire in my
not that
apartment.
we wear like 3-piece suits on the show or anything like that, but it's just, in this particular one, I think I went a little too laid back.
Well, we should start a dress code. We're going to start a dress code. Now that you said it, 3-piece suits are we're going to cut a certain.
Well, I guess it all depends on the episode.
Forward.
Maybe it just depends on what we're talking about.
For every episode, we are business from now on. This is the last of the laid back episodes. No more lazing about for us. We need after Jack Johnson. We're going to be all business.
Where's your tie? Get it on
time.
There you go.
I'm just gonna put a jacket and tie from the top up. I mean, no one sees the bottom, so
there you go. We could
just
be
like
sitting in our underwear.
Work. Yeah, they all do it for work. So.
Or people know. So, what's your favorite song off the record?
Oh God, well, yeah. There's actually there's a great version of Constellations sung by Eddie Vedder.
Really?
Well, yeah. Oh my God, is it from his live album? Did Jack Johnson do it with him there?
Oh,
his live album is called
a fan. That's great to hear. That's always great to hear when artists.
What's it called? And Concerto, or I'm gonna butcher it, but is it and Concert? It came out in 2009. Yeah, it's on there. He did a live album, Jack Johnson, called En Concert, released in 2009. Jack Johnson and Eddie Vedder do Constellations. Check that out. I'm going to link that to the show notes as well. So you're going to get a music video, and then you're going to get this great version of Constellations.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. I've got to look for that. That's great.
Yeah, because Eddie can do, like, he didn't Pearl Jam it. Eddie's got the ability, just like his. You ever see his version of The Waiting with Tom Petty?
No.
Oh my God!
I heard about it, but yeah, I know he's done.
He's able to slide into these different genres and be faithful to it. Okay. So yeah, his version of Constellations, he sings it with Jack Johnson, and he's in that right headspace. So of course I got to go with Constellations. There's so many on here though, like.
I know.
There really is. Like it's
hard. It's a hard one.
There's 14 songs. They're not all long. Some songs are less than 2 minutes as well. So, God, I'm sitting waiting, wishing has to be on the list because it was my introduction to him, and there's a lot of other songs I like more, but that one kind of, because of the music video, was like so weird. I'm like, what? This is very strange.
Yeah.
I'll go with Sitting Waiting, Better Together, Good People, and Constellations, and Breakdown.
Okay.
And Banana Pancakes.
I like Never Know.
And Never Know.
I like Never Know. I like Better Together. I love Staple It Together. That's a great one. Wow. If I Could is a good one. I love Belle. Do You Remember? I'm... I guess the top three would be the ones that I just mentioned, but Staple It Together, Never Know, and Better Together are my probably my three.
If I Could is kind of a sad song.
Yeah, it is, but there's a lot of different emotions happening on this record. You would think it's all the same stuff, but it's not. He
hits a lot of different chords.
He does.
Yeah, he hits a lot of different emotional chords. Yep. But it's a consistent sound, which is really the great thing about it is, he kind of slides in there, and gives you a lot of stuff. And it's just, I think we need to end the gushing because people are gonna be like, oh God, I got a toothache. This episode is so sweet. Now I we got to give out free dental exams after this episode. I think this was sweeter than any ELO episode we've done or will do.
Well, maybe
this was. Yeah. This was really a gusher, but we can't say enough. And he's had a strong career. Like we said, 3 number 1 albums after this. So this was actually his run up. This was number 2. The album before this was number 3, which was On and On and On and On. It was number 3. So he started working up to it. And then his first one, Brushfire Fairy Tales, was like in the 30s or 40s. It didn't really chart well. But then all of a sudden, people started kind of catching on to what he was putting out, and then he just built a loyal fan base. Like once he got his name out there and got like a hit, people just grabbed on. And I guess like Dave Matthews Band or one of those other ones, right? Dave Matthews didn't have a lot of big hits, but grew his fan base by tour, like the Grateful Dead model of just touring incessantly.
Yeah,
you know, and just always out there. You know, I think Jack Johnson did that in the beginning, but now doesn't need to.
Right.
You know, now it's more of a special thing when he comes around. It's like, oh, we got to go see Jack Johnson.
Yeah, which is odd to me. It's odd that he wouldn't be out there more, but hey, it's not, you know.
How many foundations does the guy have? He's got to work too.
Well, the road is a hard, that's a hard
surf.
life.
He makes surf movies as well. He's a filmmaker. He makes documentaries about surfing.
That's right. Yeah.
Guy's got his hands in a lot, you know, modern day Renaissance man, you know, filmmaker, philanthropist, musician. I mean, what more do you want from the guy? Come over and do my dishes? I mean, I'd feel bad asking him to do that. Like, you know, like he's done enough. You think he's done enough for the country?
Yeah,
we're gonna leave Jack Johnson alone. Like, we'll get
very good. Yeah, that's it. That's a great point. Oh man.
Yeah, I think we'll leave it there.
That's a great place to end it.
Check this album out. It is absolutely on Spotify. We absolutely love this one. So
yeah.
And it's you know, we're filming this, you know, we're coming towards the end of the summer. It's a great listen. It is definitely a seasonal album. I don't know if I would listen to this in the winter as much.
No.
Autumn is great. This is great for autumn too. A little breeze, sun's going down. Absolutely a mood setting album. You're at a picnic, you're at a barbecue, put this on. No one's going to get mad. You're not going to ruffle. Oh, what do you put? Like you go to a barbecue, you want to put on your music, but then 3 people don't want to hear it. You know,
yeah, right.
Like, and then it becomes like, what is it? You know, and then you have to like battle for you're negotiating.
That's right.
There'll be no negotiating with Jack Johnson. No, he settles all arguments.
I think we made the case.
We made the case. So that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, we're going to drop in the show notes. We're going to drop a crazy ass video with Andy Samberg and Jack Johnson knife fighting and breaking bottles over their heads. You'll get a laugh out of that. Then we'll drop the link to the version of Constellations with Eddie Vedder, which is a fantastic version of it as well. So you can check all of that out. And then, of course, new episodes every week of the music and movies that shaped our lives. And as you heard from this episode, this one really had a big effect on both of us. Separately, this wasn't one that we grew up together on. We kind of came to it separately, but then we're able to go to a great concert together and really have a shared experience like no other. So
that's right.
That'll do it. So for Eric, this has been Dean, and we will see you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.